Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome. We're super excited about this talk today. This is our first talk in our communication skills series, which will help you be a better conservationist ultimately. So I'm Ciel Vaughan. I work with Chess Green Africa, and I'll be your host for today's event. And a massive welcome to everyone joining online, and also to our students from Toronto University of Technology, who are our primary audience. And of course, Dr. Ogilvie as well. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to go through some of the key learning outcomes for our presentation today. So we'd like for you to be able to understand the key elements of communication, including sender, message, channel, and feedback. We'd like you to be able to identify and differentiate between verbal, non-verbal, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and intercultural communication. To analyze major communication models like Shannon's, interactive, and transactional models. And finally, to be able to apply key communication theories, such as agenda setting, cultivation, uses, and gratifications.
Thank you very much once again. Let me share my slide. All right, we'll continue from where we stopped. And we discussed about the meaning of communication. We also talked about the communication process. And we concluded with the various barriers to communication process. And from now on, we're going to move on to the models of communication process. And models, these are conceptual frameworks that explain the process of communication between the sender and the receiver. They are frameworks that explain the process of communication between the sender and receiver. So basically, these models, they try to answer what is the communication about, who is involved in the communication process, when does it happen, where does it take place, why does it take place, and also how does the communication happen. So I'll give an example of one framework of how communication happens. Let's say you want to write a poster to put on the board. So you have put a poster on your board there. The recipient of the message, they cannot provide feedback on that poster. So it is basically one-way communication. When you are listening to the radio, let's say it is not a phone-in program, it is just one way. Or sometimes you are chatting with your friend, you are discussing an issue, asking questions, interacting. That is also another framework for communication, or another process in which communication between the sender and receiver is happening. Or sometimes, let's say you are at an auto teller machine, at ATM machine, and then you are able to communicate, but it is not as per the conversation that you were having with a friend. So basically, we're going to discuss these three types of communication. So in the who is communication, what is being communicated, the message, when does it happen, where does it take place, why does it occur, and how? These are important questions in understanding the models of communication. Communication models contribute to development of many other theories and models. As we see, communication is evolving each and every day. So, which means that these conceptual frameworks, we can be able to be innovative and develop other theories of communication to make sure that communication is effective in our spaces. So people are continuing to develop theories and models of communication. For example, communication models are the basis of various ICTs, information and communication technology adoption models. Shannon information theory model. All right, so we're going to look at three models of communication. And the three models are the Shannon information theory model. And this model is also called active model or transmissive model Others will call it one-way communication model. And the second model that we'll look at is the cybernetic, interactive, or gatekeeper model. And finally, the transactional model. So these three models represents the three first examples that I gave of a poster, you chatting with your friend, or pressing on an ATM machine. So the Shannon information theory model, this model was initiated. It was established by Shannon and Weaver in the 1940s, and it is used in mass media. And it is also used in posters because Shannon and Weaver did their theory in the 1940s, but people over the years have applied this theory to other forms of communication. For example, the poster, rhetoric, speeches. And in this particular model, there's no feedback. So you will note that when one is presenting a speech, let's say the President Ramaphosa is presenting a speech, you cannot interrupt that speech until the president has finished speaking, or even in your spaces when a speech is being presented. So it is one way. Comedian, if you have famous comedians in their act, it is always one way. No questions can be asked. And also similarly in posters, on radio or television. And as I've said, there's no feedback. Cybernetic model or interactive model. In this particular model, there's feedback. And it also includes, it is used in mass media and also in the ICTs, information and communication technologies. So the cybernetic model, it has feedback, and it is used in mass media. And for example, the editors edit pieces of stories before they go into the newspaper. So in that case, there's some form of feedback. And also it is also used in information and communication technologies. As I said, in the ATM machine, or teller machine, or also through voicemail, where there's not continuous flow of feedback. And the third model, the transactional model, this is where now it includes feedback, and it is interactive, conversational. It can happen face-to-face. You can have a video call, whereby you are providing each other feedback consistently, asking questions. So that is the transactional model. So I'll start with the Shannon and Weaver model, which is also called Shannon's model, 1948. The Shannon model of communication, which is also called the Shannon and Weaver. It has several names. But in this particular model, as you can see, Shannon and Weaver, they made this particular conceptual framework for communication. And you can see that the information is flowing from the information source to the destination. And according to Shannon, because it is one-way communication, they are calling the information source not sender, because the sender also has the privilege of listening to the recipient and interpret the message and respond. But in this case, the information source is the one who creates the message and sends it to the destination. So the information source can be it can be the radio announcer, while the destination is the person who is listening to the radio. Particularly in 1948, Shannon and Weaver used the telephone instrument. And as they were using the telephone instrument, for them, the information source was the person who was sending the message, the human being sending the message. And the transmitter, the message is what this person was sending. And according to the Shannon model, the message can be discrete or continuous. So discrete, for example, a poster, or continuous, like a radio, television, where the message is flowing. Then the transmitter, according to Shannon, it was, so the transmitter was the one that was converting the audio from this telephone, from this human being to a sound signal. So the transmitter is an instrument, is the technology that is now transforming the sound, the audio to sound signal. And this signal is transmitted through air, and you can see the box there. They didn't label it, but it is the channel. And the noise is, as we learned earlier on about the noise in the communication process. In this case, Shannon and Weaver focused mostly on the environmental noise, the noise that can happen on carrying the sound from the information source to the destination. So sometimes they would find that maybe the line is not that straight, or the receiver had a problem. So that is what would affect the message that is received at the destination. And the receiver is the receiving telephone instrument. So at the end, you also have the mouthpiece. And the destination is the person that is receiving the message but cannot send feedback. So that is why it is one way. So it has 8 constituents, this model: information source, the message, the transmitter, the signal. It has the noise, it has the channel, receiver, and destination. The next model is the interactive, cybernetic, or intermediate model, also called gatekeeper model. And as you can see, these names, it means that there are various conceptual frameworks, but they are in this one group, whereby they provide feedback, but the feedback is not that continuous. So, for example, in this case, they use the same Shannon and Weaver conception, but now you can see that there's feedback. So this is more of a gatekeeper model. Let's say you have written a story, for example, about maybe contribution of elephants to the GDP or to the economy. Then you find that this story that you have written, you cannot just post it in a particular newspaper or magazine. It needs to go through the editor. So in this case, you have sent a message to the destination, who is the editor. And the editor is now the destination. The editor will provide some feedback. Maybe the article is too long. They'll shorten it. And then they provide the feedback, and the editor becomes the information source. So the editor is the one who is going now to publish in the newspaper. And the transactional model, in this particular model, now you have the sender and the receiver both sending messages. They are both interpreting the messages. So you have communicator A encodes with a language. They send in a medium, let's say oral or written, and the receiver receives the message and interprets it. And then the receiver, the communicator B, also encodes, responds, and encodes with a language and sends through a medium, and so forth and so forth. So it is continuous. That is why it is round. There are also other illustrations for these 3 models, like the linear model or the Shannon model or one-way communication model is the first one on top, where you have the sender, message, channel, noise, receiver, one way. There's no feedback provided. Then when you look at the middle one, you have the sender is able to provide a message in a context, is able to encode the message, decode, and so forth. It has all the powers, the sender. And then the message is encoded, decoded, the receiver receives. But you can see that when you look at the third one, which is transactional, the receiver and the sender, both of them, they're able to encode, decode the messages, and also send messages, send and receive messages. So that is transactional model. And in this diagram, I know you may not be able to see it clearly, but it's just discussing what are the advantages of using these three models of communication and also the disadvantages. So basically, the one-way communication model is simple and straightforward. For instance, there's a danger. You want to send the message to the masses instantly. This is a model of communication that one can use. It is simple and straightforward. The message is transmitted instantly to the masses, and it generalizes the way people look at communication process. For example, you find that maybe people advertising for bet, they will just send them to your phone, or sometimes you have pop-ups on your internet. All these are one-way communication. So the advantages in that you are able to send messages instantly. But the disadvantage is that there's no feedback. Transmission model ignores age, context, the social context, political context, historical context of the recipient. So it will send messages to whether one is young or old, despite that the message maybe was targeted to the particular age group. Or sometimes, let's say in politics, if you are advertising on the radio for your particular political party, you find that everyone gets the message. Also, it assumes content equals meaning. It assumes that the message that you have sent is what people are going to understand. But we have learned earlier on that communication is complex, in that people may interpret differently. They may decode different meanings from the message that has been sent. It does not promote relationship. One-way communication, for example, let's say the school just announces that we have suspended classes without interacting with various bodies. You find that it can lead to others even protesting the decision. And interactive or the gatekeeper model, it also has advantages. For example, editors are able to shorten the message so that people can read quickly, understand it, or remove the errors that are in there. It can be used in ICTs, and hence you are able to access people very quickly. People in power, the president, you can send messages, or you can also send messages quickly to all the masses. And also, it makes office schedules irrelevant. For example, when you want to submit your application, you are able to submit it and maybe you get feedback. Application has been received midnight, instead of going to an office at by 5 p.m. or before they close. But it also has disadvantages in that sometimes the editor may be biased. You may also have issues to do with network, which can affect the message. And sometimes you find that it also affects people's interpersonal skills, in that a person, if you are communicating, interacting with people all the time, you find that you build good interpersonal skills, smiling, being able to ask questions in a polite manner and so forth. But if you are consistently just interacting virtually, you find that such interpersonal skills start to go. For instance, as a game ranger, you want to be able to smile, be able to greet people, and be able to establish some relationship very quickly, which may be challenging if we are only focused in using ICTs. Transactional communication, it also has advantages in that because you are meeting face-to-face, then you're able to see non-verbal behavior, as we said, and you're able to get meaning. When you are discussing issues, you are able to be more innovative. You are able to think creatively, and also you are able to get meaning, the exact meaning of what the person meant, which is very effective communication. But the disadvantage is that with the transactional communication, how many people can you meet face-to-face in small groups? You find that if your target is to meet all South Africans, then you may be challenged to use this particular model. And sometimes it may promote inequality. You will notice that while we were saying that you can also have a WhatsApp group of you and your classmates, but you agree with me that there are some that are always the ones that are sending messages. If you try to just count on one small issue that you have posted, you find that instead of everyone presenting their view, one person has sent maybe 90% of the conversation. And also, messages may still be interpreted because of relationship among communicators. So those are the three models of communication. And I'll move on to the last part, which is the communication theory. Theories are sets of ideas of various status and origin which explain or interpret some phenomena. And they're also defined as any conceptual representation or explanation of a phenomena. So basically in communication, others have studied communication and have seen that it's a tricky concept with no precise definition. Many people define communication differently. So mass communication theories are therefore seen as explanations and predictions of social phenomena, all right, that are connected. I'm sorry, my other part is hiding. And there are many communication theories. So we are going to look at just a few theories: the agenda setting theory, the hypodemic or magic bullet theory, captivation theory, use and gratification approach theory, and also the media dependency theory. Agenda setting theory. As students in game range, you note that for you to start, when you write an article, the assumption is that it will make people start discussing that particular issue. For example, let's say the issue of stop burning the bushes because we have animals that are living in this particular bush and so forth. So setting the agenda, agenda setting theory is about setting what people should think about along that particular subject. So the agenda setting theory can be traced back from 1922, and it argues that mass media are the principal connection between the event in the world and the images in the minds of the public. And in 1963, others also developed this theory further, that sometimes it may not be successful in telling people what they should think about, but it's certainly successful in telling the readers what to think about. And that's the agenda setting. So us, as in our field, we can also use the agenda setting theory to make sure that we are able to innovate and create what people should be thinking about in line with a particular subject. So that's an example, an illustration. There are so many illustrations for the agenda setting theory, but you can see that there's a reality there. And we have gatekeepers in the media, the editors, and they have their media agenda, and then we have the public agenda. Then we have audience perception of reality. So basically, people already, they already know what they should, like burning bush is not good. And the editors or the media is setting up the agenda that people are already discussing about. So others have said that the agenda settings theory is not easy for a journalist to, or the one who is writing the story, to set an agenda. but we are going to write stories about what people are already thinking about. All right, so the hypodemic needle theory, or the magic bullet theory, this also emerged in the 1940s, that implied that mass media had a direct, immediate, or powerful effect on its audience. For instance, we have that needle there, the injection, that as soon as you just feed people with this particular message, then people will reciprocate, they will respond according to the message that has been sent. So it helps to persuade people, or also in advertising. Captivation theory, that when we write stories, sometimes we feel that the audience is not responding very quickly. But the captivation theory argue that sometimes media has long-term effects on the audience, that despite that, as you continue writing maybe a particular article, or maybe you have a page, it helps people still to think about what a particular issue you are trying to advocate to them over time. The use and gratificational approach. Also, we need to make sure that as we write stories to our audiences, we need to make sure that their story, people will read stories because they are interested in them, because they are motivated to read them. So we need to make sure that we don't just write stories, but people will read our stories because they are interesting, because they like to use the channel that we have used. For instance, let's say you have posted in the newspaper. How many people buy newspapers? But sometimes if we post on a WhatsApp group, depending on, you find that the story moves very fast on social media. So because people are gratified, they're interested in using that particular media. And also the media dependency theory, like the agenda setting theory. This also explained that in social change, people basically use the media in order to get ideas. So this theory gives clear explanation of how media plays in crisis in specific periods. So basically, these theories help us to make sure that when we write our articles, it is important that we read these theories to understand them, and to also perceive how audience will react. As we're talking about the captivation theory, that people will not respond very quickly sometimes, but they are getting the idea. They are changing, but change takes time. If it is to do with the hypodemic, then you find that sometimes you provide information, people respond very quickly. So there are many ways in which people respond to media, and that's why we have so many theories. And these are just 5, but you find that there are close to 20 theories of communication. All right, so I'll stop here. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kasia. That was really, really fantastic. A lot of information covered there. Really, really great stuff. So thank you so much for that. Thank you as well for giving us your time and expertise. We do have a few minutes for questions. So I'm wondering, are there any questions for our online audience? Please put it in the chat, or as well, we can go to TUT Dr. O and see what questions we have there.
All right, my students are telling me they were so engrossed in all the theory that they took it all as theory. They haven't got any questions. So they've just learned a hell of a lot, and they've written a hell of a lot. I've taken note of all the papers and all the scribble, but I'm going to promise you to our guest speaker, you will get feedback of what their test results are, which they're going to be writing at 2 o'clock today.
Great, thank you so much. All right, are there any questions from the audience then? I don't see any hands going up from the online audience. I'm guessing probably in the same situation. That was a lot of information to take in, but really, really useful stuff. And if that's the case, I am just going to finish off with our ILOs that we had at the start of the presentation. Just as a reminder, and hopefully you will have learned these, but also a lot more. So let me just run through those one final time. So understanding the key elements of communication, including sender, message, channel, and feedback. We also learned to identify and differentiate between verbal, non-verbal, interpersonal, and intercultural communication. We learned to analyze major communication models like Shannon's, interactive and transactional models, and also to apply key communication theories such as agenda setting, cultivation, uses, and gratifications. So I know we all learned that and much more. And I wanted to say a massive thank you to our wonderful speaker today. Thank you as well to our online audience for joining. And as always, thank you so much for Dr. Ogilvie and the students of TUT. And we really look forward to hearing your feedback from those test results.